Hello, I'm Tim Smith with the Adams County Historical Society, and welcome to another installment of Monuments Monday. So today I just wanted to talk about a few different monuments, and I thought a good location would be what is generally referred to as the Loop, simply because the road put in this area in the 1890s loops around. Actually, this area is probably better known as the Stony Hill, a quote from General Kershaw's official report of the battle from South Carolina, the men that attacked this hill. Now, the monuments on the Gettysburg National Military Park serve a dual purpose. First, the monuments were placed here by the veterans to mark the spot where they were standing during the fighting. Secondly, these monuments represent and honor all the men from that regiment during their 4 years of service throughout the war. So these are this is the monument to the unit for the whole war, even though it's at Gettysburg. Now, a regiment is about 1,000 men. By the time they got to Gettysburg, the average size of a regiment is about 300 because, of course, they've been in service for a time and they've been whittled down by not only the casualties of the fighting in these battles, but also disease in the camps. And so this is a rather large regiment. The 140th Pennsylvania Volunteers had almost 600 men in the battle. And you can see that they suffered about 240 casualties, killed, wounded, captured, or missing. And they lost severely as part of Samuel Zook's brigade, of John Caldwell's division of the 2nd Army Corps in this area at the edge of the Stony Hill. Now, let's walk over this way. There is a brigade plaque here. The brigade plaques were put here in the early 1900s to mark each of the brigades that fought in the battle. So a regiment is about 300 men, and a brigade, on average, is about 5 regiments, so about 1,500 men for a brigade. And every brigade, theoretically, is commanded by a brigadier general. So at the outbreak of the war, a brigade would be about 5,000 men. Now, on the Gettysburg battlefield, Northern Brigade plaques have square granite bases, and Southern Brigade plaques have rounded marble or granite bases. So although there are not Southern regimental monuments around the battlefield, there is a plaque to represent every brigade, north or south, at the battle. And this is the 2nd Brigade of the 1st Division of the 2nd Army Corps, which of course is the Irish Brigade. And of course, here at Gettysburg, it was commanded by Colonel Patrick Kelly. And the Irish Brigade had been in severe fighting at Antietam. They attacked the Sunken Lane. At Antietam, they defended the Sunken Lane. At Fredericksburg, they attacked the Stone Wall. So they were sort of really whittled down by the time they got to this battle, and there's just a hollow, form of their original brigade. Let's walk over here. This is the 28th Massachusetts here of the Irish Brigade, and it's kind of interesting that on the top of this monument there's a really nice depiction of an eagle, but also they have a term that I have no idea how to pronounce it. So it's Gaelic, so I'm sure if in the comments, if you want to correct me, you're welcome to. But basically it says, Falabalach, and it means clear the way. And it's sort of their war cry. Now, if we walk across the road, we'll have the 116th Pennsylvania Infantry. The 116th Pennsylvania was commanded here at the battle by Major St. Clair Mulholland. And again, this is part of the Irish Brigade who suffered severe casualties in the fight on this knoll. Now, it's interesting that I think in the regimental history, they say that the monument actually represents a soldier that they noticed just as they arrived. And apparently a soldier from the 110th Pennsylvania of the 3rd Army Corps had been killed along a fence row at the base of this hill. And St. Clair Mulholland noticed this man and how young he was and how perfectly he looked in death. And he had them depict that on this monument. So a soldier killed in the battle. And the artistry on this particular monument is one of the best on the battlefield. That's another thing about the monuments as you go around. You know, some of the bronze work and some of the stone work on these is just incredible. So if you get an opportunity, come up here and take a look at this particular monument. Let's walk over in this direction. So when people come out here to the Stony Hill, they are often confused by the placement of the monuments or the placement of the flank markers. And honestly, if all these units were here at the same time during the battle, none of this would make very much sense. But this fight that occurred here on this rise of ground was a fluid action that lasted for more than an hour. And at first there were elements of the 3rd Army Corps, and then elements of the 5th Army Corps were sent in and pulled back, and then elements of the 2nd Army Corps were thrown into this fight. And all the monuments today represent the various positions of the units during these various phases of the battle. So here we are at the 1st Michigan Infantry from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I actually had Jim Harbaugh on a tour, and we talked about this monument at one point. But as we stand here and look across the valley, it shouldn't surprise us that the placement of these monuments might be a little askew. The veterans fought here, and at the time of the battle, this rise of ground was wooded, looking out across an open valley towards the Rose Farmhouse. And this area we're in is all part of the Rose Farm. But in the 1870s or early 1880s, this area was clear cut. And so when the veterans were coming back to place their monuments, they're placing them on top of this rise of ground that was unwooded at that time. And we have an image here to illustrate that. You know, over the years, the battlefield has changed. The Rose Farm eventually was owned by William Weibel, and he sort of ran a bed and breakfast out of the farm. And right here in front of us, there was a carp pond that he put in with a fine specimen of German carp, according to the early newspapers we have that describes it. And today, of course, the carp pond has been removed. This area has been more restored to its wooded appearance. And these early photographs of the battlefield actually help us understand kind of the changes that has occurred over the years on the battlefield.